Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. Welcome back to Feminine Roadmap Podcast, the podcast that helps you navigate the challenges and the changes of midlife and empowers you to live a more vibrant second half. If you find us on YouTube today, please don't forget to ring that bell so you don't miss any more of these amazing conversations. If you are on a podcast platform, please don't forget to subscribe and share this content. Today, we are going to be talking about my guest, who is dedicated to helping people in midlife prevent and reverse disease with nutrition and fitness. She empowers people to take charge of their lives and to find balance in their lives. Amy K. Wilson is a certified fitness professional, a nutrition coach, and a board-certified geriatric pharmacist. Amy, thank you so much for joining me today.
I am ecstatic to be here with you and your amazing tribe.
Yes, we are a group of women who are looking for a life that is more vibrant. We have a longer life, right, than we've had in the past. And so guests like you are such an asset to us to help us understand, how do we maximize these years, these extra years we've been given, Lord willing, to live until 85, 90. I have a coaching client who's 88. So it's like, people like you who have this information are invaluable to us. But what exactly led you to this particular mission and message, Amy?
It's the short, long version of it was, I have always been in fitness, danced, did sports, that kind of thing. When I went to college and was majoring in pharmacy, I was bound and determined not to gain the freshman 15. I think we can all remember that. And it's like, oh, the freshman 15. And I found started teaching aerobics, and it was a great side gig for going to pharmacy school. So, I go to pharmacy school and then I get to do working out and I get paid for it. It was awesome. The issues that arose was that, I became an exercise addict. And so I graduated from pharmacy school, became a pharmacist. I still was teaching, but at that time, so this was, started teaching with leg warmers, leotards, Jane Fonda era. Yeah, we can all remember that. And I kept teaching, and I love teaching. I love helping people. But the problem is that there was a lot of misinformation back in the day. We were doing SnackWells. If anybody remember SnackWells, fat was evil. And so we replaced it with a lot of sugar. We didn't know much, and we were just told, and we believed what we were told. And it was a constant chronic dieting back and forth and over exercising until I blew my back out at 29. Had to have back surgery. And my physician at that time says, you're an exercise addict. Okay, so what? I could be addicted to cigarettes or something else. I mean, how bad is it for you to be addicted to exercise? I'm like, okay, so. And it wasn't until later down the road that I'm like, okay, there is something about this. We are beating our bodies up. I became a board-certified geriatric pharmacist and was working in nursing homes. And going through perimenopause, going through menopause myself, and all the things that I used to do, the 1,200 calories, the do more exercise, everything that we have been told to do stopped working, and my hips were getting bigger and I was getting fluffier. And it's as a fitness professional, that's hard. You're in front of everybody and everybody expects you to be a certain way. But the problem is, a lot of us fitness professionals are not doing a healthy version. We're doing the extreme to try to get into what is supposed to be the norm. At the same time, I'm starting to see lifestyle diseases coming into the nursing homes. I am starting to see more and more cases of diabetes and the complications of diabetes and colon cancer and young people. So where my people in nursing homes used to be 80s and 90s, now I'm seeing 40s, 50s, and 60s. And that's shocking when you're looking at a chart and somebody has your same year, date of birth, or even younger. And finally figuring out nutrition, finally figuring out you don't have to work out for hours, finally understanding how food can age us backwards, how we can heal our own bodies with nutrition, and that the diet mindset has not served us. The diet mindset has caused us thyroid issues. It's caused us how many years of feeling like we weren't adequate because we couldn't be this certain size or this certain weight. And it was kind of a shift going, you know what? I started seeing results by focusing on the nutrition, by changing the way that I was working out, and by feeding my body and quit starving my body. And I knew I had to help others. I knew that if I was feeling this way, there were tons of midlife women out there who were feeling the same. And I had a bigger purpose, was to keep them out of a nursing home.
Mm.
Because either we're going to over diet and under consume and cause osteoporosis and frailty and actually age ourselves faster, or then we go the other way where we think we're being healthy and we're taking all this chemicals inside our body and causing more disease, where we can find the balance, eat, live our best lives, thrive, stay out of the nursing homes, and be that 90-year-old who's just having a ball. That's what we can do. So that's the long, short story.
Yes, I do remember all of that. I was a cheerleader in college, and so we had to take this aerobics class because our director was the aerobics instructor, and she was that woman. Yeah. She happened to probably be in her late 40s, but you could see the stress on her body. She was super thin,
right?
But I remember she was manic about it and very aggressive to us about our body image and our weight. And she would weigh us and call out our weight to everybody else. And I remember all of that. It was a very profound season of my life, where I'm 5'11". So I am not a small person, but a lot of cheerleaders are. So it was a really mind-bending kind of thing. And I do remember the whole concept of fat is bad and, the diets that everybody was on, and I didn't happen to fall too far into it, but I do want to know a little bit more about this idea. I understand that food is fuel and that fat is important, especially for Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. But let's talk a little bit about how food helps us age in reverse, because that's a very provocative statement. And I'd like to know, when you say that, what do you mean and what kind of foods are we talking about?
So what I'm talking about is real food, your fruit, your vegetables, your meat. What I'm not talking about is your ultra processed foods. And that's the stuff that's coming in boxes, or you're going through the drive-through. So what happens is, if you think about, and I always tell my clients and whoever I'm working with, that we have to focus on healing from the inside out. The outside package, it'll get there. You'll lose the inches, you'll lose the weight, it will get there. But if we can focus on the inside first and do the inside job, we forget that we have to breathe. We forget that there are enzymes in our bodies that cause chemical reactions. We forget that we're made up of a bunch of DNA that tells our body what to do. We forget about all those little chemical reactions, all those processes. You can either support all those chemical reactions and processes, or you can hinder them. And how that happens is with food. And if you give your body, if you kind of think back in high school chemistry lab these putting some things together, and some things would go boom and some things wouldn't do a thing. You want that boom. You want that chemical reaction to occur in a good way. And when that happens, when you're able to have those reactions occur, when you have that, we call the gut microbiome. So we always say that that bacteria could be your second brain. Back in the day, we used to think all that bacteria was bad and we wanted to wipe it out. We now know that that bacteria is so good, and how you get more bacteria, the good bacteria, is with real food. And when you have that real food, it helps your DNA. It actually lengthens your DNA at the ends. It's called telomeres, but it actually lengthens your DNA, because as we age, our DNA shortens and ages us. But if we can lengthen our DNA, we start going, aging backwards. Our skin looks better, less wrinkles. Our muscle tone is better. So all of these things will start to age us backwards. We're not meant to grow old per se. We're meant to get a year older, but we're not meant to be frail. We're not meant to be sickly or having disease of ages. We've kind of done that with unfortunately, our diet.
And we can see that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can totally see. Have you ever seen someone and you're just like, wow, they must have had a really hard life. Like you can just see the
Go a high,
difficulty.
go to a high school reunion, the people that you graduated with, and you're like, oh my gosh, they look like they're, 20 years younger. And then you have those people, you have on the other side, you have the ones who look like they're 30 years older than you are. And you're like, so what is the difference? And a lot of it is how you handle stress. And a lot of it is what you're feeding and fueling your body.
I've heard this analogy and I love it because I'm a word picture person. So your DNA and your genetics is the gun, but how you live pulls the trigger.
Absolutely. So if you think of triads, like your DNA is, I call it the GPS. So we have Waze, we have Google Maps, we have all these other things that we can use, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The DNA does not define you. So if you're like, I have the type 2 diabetes gene, my dad gave it to me, but I am not letting that gene, what we call express, turn
Yes.
on. We have a couple things. We have environment and we have nutrition. And we can use environment and nutrition to keep certain genetics, keep them down. And then we can also use environment and nutrition to help the genetics that we want to work.
Yeah, that's really fascinating because you're talking about epigenetics, right? We're
Yes,
talking
correct.
about the way our genes express themselves. And I've seen studies where you have like twins and they'll have one who lives more the life that you live. And then you have the one that maybe made difficult choices in their relationships and maybe they smoked and maybe they, just had a harder life and they're identical twins and they literally look, you can see the life on them, if that makes any sense.
It totally does. Yeah.
Now, my question is, that being said, can we repair and reverse if we've maybe gotten off track with our bodies and our skin and our diet?
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest, I won't say mistake or biggest myth that people think. It's like, oh, I hit 50. It's over. It's done.
Yeah.
And it's just the way this is just the way it is. This is the way it always is. No, your second chapter should be the most amazing chapter of your life. You absolutely can change. Now, do you want to go all in and change overnight? I'm going to tell anybody there's very few people who can actually do that.
Okay.
It takes baby steps to be able to change your lifestyle all the way. But yeah, you can reverse type 2 diabetes. You can reverse prediabetes. You can reverse hypertension. Most people will find that their skin starts looking better, that their lab markers become better, that not only that, how you feel. I mean, let's be honest. We want to feel amazing. We don't want to feel tired and just going day by day and having all the aches and pains that we think are just the aging process.
Normal.
Yeah. And then the problem is that becomes your new norm. And then with my clients, usually it's like, they're like, oh my gosh, my migraines are gone, or the inflammation is gone, or the joint pain is gone, or they'll go to their doctor. Like I have a client right now who, I'm just my second week with working with her, and I have to send her a doctor because her blood pressure is so low and she's on blood pressure medication.
Oh,
yeah. So we quickly removed a lot of inflammation, and a lot of inflammation is aging process too. And when we can start going backwards, it's amazing how quickly your body will respond. And it's amazing how great you feel. That's the cool thing. It's just, you never realize how bad you felt until you start feeling good.
Right. Let's talk about inflammation because that's a real buzzword right now. It's everywhere, Yeah. So what is inflammation for just really on a simple level? What causes inflammation? I know it probably varies from person to person. And what are some of the solutions for inflammation?
So inflammation, if you think about an acute inflammation, you rolled your ankle and it becomes inflamed, or maybe you jammed your finger. Okay. So that goes away. It's inflammation that is supposed to be for a small period of time while your body heals itself, and then it goes away. The problem is that we have what's called chronic inflammation. So we have things in our body, whether it be constant high blood sugar. That's a big one that causes chronic inflammation. And your body is responding to heal.
Mhm.
The problem is the body doesn't stop responding to heal. And that's what it is. Your body is kind of going out of control because it's getting all these signals from you that you're in trouble, that there's issues going on. What causes that inflammation is ultra processed food. It's eating foods that's causing your blood sugar to constantly spike. And I'm not talking about little, because everyone's like, well, I just need to have a flatline blood sugar. No, you don't. Your blood sugar will go up and down. Insulin is a great hormone. It's some people like it's the devil. No, it's not. It's good. It's needed. But the problem is sometimes we go to the extreme. We
Mhm.
take that blood sugar and we go sky high and then it crashes back down, and sky high and crashes back down. Well, every time you go sky high, you are hurting your cells. You are damaging your cells. And that sends signals to your body that, hey, something's going on. I need to start fixing. And so it fixes with inflammation.
Mhm.
The problem with that is when it becomes what's called chronic. It is 24/7. And now we're having some issues. Now we're increasing our chances for stroke. Now we're increasing our chance for heart disease. For Alzheimer's, we're finding a lot out of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in the last several months. It's a very exciting time for science for that. But we can, by taking out that inflammation, by once again fueling our body with food that will help decrease that inflammation and get rid of it, so that now you are decreasing high blood pressure. Now you're decreasing your blood sugar issues. Now you're
Mhm.
decreasing your chance for stroke, for Alzheimer's, for all these other conditions that are now really being linked to inflammation.
Hmm. It's interesting because I just recently saw an article about inflammation being linked to Alzheimer's and dementia. Specifically, they're just recently recognizing that there's apparently a higher percentage of inflammation
Mhm.
in that. And that's fascinating to me because
Yeah.
isn't it amazing how our bodies are designed to
Mhm.
protect? Because that's what inflammation sounds like it's doing in the right moment.
In the right moment. The
It's
problem is
protecting.
the problem is because of we're there's, like I said, there's good chemical reactions, there's some bad chemical reactions. So
Yes.
we're constantly, if you're in a state of inflammation, you are constantly stressing your body out. And it's
Mhm.
trying to protect itself, but in the process of protecting itself, it's actually hurting itself.
Yeah, isn't interesting? But what it sounds like is you've heard of biohacking, I'm sure, right?
I
It
biohack all the time.
Yes. So let's talk a
I
little bit
love
about
biohacking.
biohacking, because I feel like that's another one of those words that almost sounds like only ultra marathon runners do it, or only,
Yeah.
like, because the people who talk about it, they always look like they have zero body fat and they love to run, No, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just
The
saying that,
extreme. We want to find the balance. They're the extreme.
yes,
We want to find balance.
but the
Yes.
ones
Yes.
talking about it, they look like that. Was it
Yeah.
Dave Asprey?
Yes. Yeah. He's a
Yeah.
big biohacker. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the first ones that actually years ago kind of came across my plate with his biohacking. So let's talk a little bit about biohacking, because that's something I haven't actually talked about on my podcast. And it's kind of following this thing about inflammation and aging in reverse. And how do we do that? And what is biohacking, and how do we as normal people utilize it?
Okay. An easy way to think about biohacking is to make everything optimal. So you're actually biohacking, believe it or not, every time you go to the doctor and you get lab work done. That is telling you right there what's going on in your blood system, what's going on with if you have your heart, you have your blood pressure taken, if you're having your glucose taken, if you're having your A1C, if you're type 2 diabetic, pre-diabetic. Actually, anybody under 50 should know what an A1C is. It's a snapshot of your blood sugar.
Mhm.
All of those numbers are giving you the information. And you're like, well, I don't know what those numbers mean. Get with somebody who knows what those numbers mean. And like with my clients, I'm going to look at that and say, okay, what's going on with these numbers? Are you pre-diabetic? Are you diabetic? What's your blood pressure? What medications are you on, so that we can make sure that we know what side effects are occurring? Then you look at what you want to get done. So let's say, let's use type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes. That's probably one of the easiest things to do. So we're going to look at your blood sugar. We're going to look at how you feel when we start changing your nutrition, what you're eating. We're going to see what happens when we start adding walking, when we start adding weight training, because what we want to do is decrease your insulin resistance and increase your insulin sensitivity. And there's a couple of different ways that we can track that biohacking is that we can use the labs that your doctor does. We can get a blood glucose monitor from the pharmacy and finger stick. Or if you're really on top of it and you want to, and your doctor agrees, you can do what's called a continuous glucose monitor or a CGM. And we're going to see when you eat what happens. We're going to see how you feel after you work out. And the goal is with biohacking is that you have a starting point and we have a goal. And with nutrition, with fitness, we're going to take that suboptimal number that we start with and get it down to an optimal number. But the key is, how do we keep it there? And it has to be, that's where the balance is. It can't be extreme. It has to be where we can find and it work with you, because if I tell someone to do something for a week and they can't do it for 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years, it's not worth it. It's not going to work. It has to be able to work with you. And that's why I tell my clients, it's like, let's not look at the diet. Let's not look at the scale. Let's look at what are we doing to heal ourselves? And that reversing type 2 diabetes, reversing prediabetes is huge in reversing your aging and biohacking.
So as you're sharing this, I'm thinking about how it's like we're talking about stress on the body. Aging is stress on the body, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is prevent stress. So we're preventing, we all know about cortisol. I was listening to some of your other podcasts and guests I know, and cortisol is another buzzword.
Yeah.
When we stress out, when we don't get sleep, we have an increase of cortisol. And cortisol, once again, we have hormones for a reason. Cortisol is a great hormone in a small dose. We are not meant to be just exposed to it at high levels 24/7. And especially with cortisol and glucose kind of work synergistically. If glucose goes up, if cortisol goes up, glucose is going to go up with it.
Okay.
And cortisol also is known to cause inflammation. We, especially for females, it's the stuff that causes the fluff around the middle. Besides estrogen, it's the stuff that, the muffin top right there. So we definitely want to, and I would say, use the biohacking or actually some meditation to help also, because a lot of times the negative voices in our head, the enemy that's within, bottlenecks us a lot. Yeah. And we don't talk about that a lot. But if you think about why did I stop this program, or why did this, it's usually the negative voices start saying, well, you're not good enough. You're not going to do this anyway. And I don't know why. And that will actually cause you to go backwards. Your brain really doesn't know the difference between what's real and then the words that you're saying to yourself. And then it's almost like a self-fulfilled prophecy that you're saying, oh, okay, well, yeah, I must be horrible. I must not be able to do this. And then you stop. The thing is to find the balance and find the positive and understanding the why. And not just the why of getting into skinny jeans, the why that I want to get healthy, the why that I don't want to be in a nursing home, or I want to live life the fullest. And I want the inside to reflect, or as I want the outside to reflect what's going on in the inside.
It's interesting. I think as women, we spend a lot of our time focusing on that outside. And I think we quit or give up because what's in our mind that we think we should look like or want to look like or are expected to look like for some women. I'm fortunate that's not something in my life, but I know women, it's like you need to look a certain way because that's what's expected of you. And that is, I think, where that negative self-talk comes from, because it's about not being able to measure up, not being able to sustain a standard. And our bodies are changing. And this is the reason I think having a conversation around midlife, it's the reason I started the podcast, is because things are changing in our lives, in our bodies, in our environments. And the way that we're processing it is changing too, because either A, we've had a very stressful life and our adrenal system is completely crashed and it can't do the job that it needs to do during perimenopause and menopause. There's all these factors that are coming into us as women in this season. I know men have their things as well, but I want to focus on women because that's my audience. So when we talk about making these changes, do you see that, especially in midlife, because that cortisol, the perimenopause, and all of these things that are changing, what was normal, I'm using air quotes for the audience who's listening, is no longer working for a lot of women. Our bodies are just almost like foreigners. You know what I mean?
Well, and the thing is, what we did in our 20s and 30s and even teens. So if you think about when you started your first diet, unfortunately set us up for issues later in life, which we don't think about. So when we starved, we were using our muscle and that was slowing our metabolism down. When we starved, we really put some extra stress on our thyroid. Not good. When we starved, we started having a bad relationship with food and seeing food as the enemy. And there's a lot of belief systems that we still have in our 50s that we need to get rid of. And that's hard. That is extremely hard. I mean, they still come back with me. It's even though I've been working on it for years, that belief system is hard. And so what we have to realize is that those diets that we did back in the day, oh, I could lose 10 pounds in 10 days. Well, did you really? Because what happened was, yeah, it happened at that time, but more than likely you rebounded. It came back. It brought friends along with it. So that 10 pounds that you lost, actually, now you've gained the 10 pounds back plus 5. Every time that you tried to do something, you were kind of borrowing from the future.
Okay.
And it's almost like when you go to, you see those cash stores, it's like, hey, get something before your paycheck. And it's like we're borrowing because our bodies are resilient when we're younger, but it's actually they're borrowing. And so eventually you got to pay it back and you have to pay it back at interest. And we have to remember, and this is what really sometimes is so bad, is that the diet industry is set up for us to fail so that we keep spending money. And it's not your fault. But they will tell you it's your fault so that you keep spending money. What you have to realize is that those 10-day challenges, the 21-day challenges are setting you up for failure because it's something that you just can't keep doing. You can't starve yourself. You're going to slow your metabolism down. You're going to lose that muscle mass. Muscle is our fountain of youth. Muscle is what is going to keep us aging backwards. It's what's going to help us from not falling, breaking a hip, osteoporosis. We need that muscle. That muscle is a commodity, and we can't be burning through it with the latest, greatest, quick fix diet. What's frustrating for us is that we want it now. We want it Amazon Prime. We want it in 2 days, hey, or in your case, 5 hours. So it's like, we want that. What we have to realize is that it's a journey and it's a lifelong journey. We don't have like diets used to have start dates, stop dates. We don't have once you start looking at health, once you start looking at it in a different lens, it's now an ongoing journey. Things will change, things will ebb and flow, but you don't stop. And that's what we have to realize. And that the progress that we want to see does come a lot slower, but it's still progress. Unfortunately, we can't see inside our bodies. We can't see everything clicking and it looking great. And our blood system is getting cleaner and the inflammation is going down. We feel it, but we can't see it. And it happens. It does happen. It just happens at a slower rate, but you have to know that it is happening and you will get there.
Thing just popped into my mind as we're talking about, borrowing from the future and inflammation and all of this. What are some of the physical manifestations that could, as we learn to pay attention to our bodies, because really that's what you have to do. You have to know what makes you feel crummy when you eat it, what makes you feel energized when you do it. You know what I mean? Like this is actually tuning in. So what are some of the things maybe that are generally like, pay attention to this. If this begins to happen, what are maybe the markers that could make someone become aware that maybe there is something not quite working for their benefit?
So if you think of lab markers first, we'll go with that, and then we'll go with food. So your first markers was something called metabolic syndrome or syndrome X.
Mm-hmm.
And that is having your blood pressures on the higher side, your glucose, fasting glucose is on the higher side. You might be what's called apple shaped, where your waist circumference is getting bigger. Your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, is lower, and your LDL is higher, and your triglycerides are higher. So if you have three of those, that's what's called metabolic syndrome, and that is an indication of inflammation. And there is tons of research and studies out there that do show having that increases your risk for Alzheimer's, strokes, diabetes. But how do you feel after you have lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Are you crashing? How do you feel after breakfast? Are you waking up and having, your coffee, or your creamer with some coffee? Are you grabbing the donut? Do you find yourself hungry every 2 hours? And that means that you are what's called a sugar burner. That means you are constantly burning through sugar. So more than likely, you are on this roller coaster of blood sugar. It's going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down. So it goes up, you crash down. Okay, I need some more. Up, coming down. And that causes inflammation. You're also probably going to find that you are crashing mid-morning after you have whatever it is to eat, mid-afternoon, after lunch. You may find that at dinner time, you're just like, oh, man, I just can't wait to go to bed. Your sleep is not good. You're restless. Hello, perimenopause and menopause. Your hot flashes are horrible. Horrible. Is that has to do with hormones, but we also, I'll attest to this. My hot flashes were atrocious. When I started balancing everything, my blood sugar, especially listening to my body, not working out all the time, the hot flashes became manageable.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't all of a sudden, oh, I'm in Arizona. Yeah. And, it was horrible, and we all know, and there's some people who don't have hot flashes, and there's others who just, it's horrible. And we can help those things with fuel, or with what we're fueling our body. Are your rings tight after you eat? Do you feel puffy all the time? Are you having migraines, headaches all the time? When you stand up, is it like, oh, okay, a little on the wobbly side? There's a lot of things to attune with, and a lot of things that we attribute to aging. Oh, it's just growing. It's just older. My knees hurt, my ankles hurt, my shoulders hurt, all of that. And we just like, oh, this just is the way it is because I'm over 50. But is it really? Can it get better? And in most cases, it can significantly get better.
Yeah. That's a great list of many things that we can pay attention to. And I know I've said this before on podcasts, but it's so important to know your own body and to understand this is a personal opinion. So I will separate myself from you on this, but I think that nature has its forms of medicine, and that pharmaceuticals should be not the first line of defense unless you're in a severe situation.
You are preaching to the choir. I am a pharmacist who does not want you on medication. I don't.
Oh, I forgot you were a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, no problem. Let me just offend whoever. No, but
but seriously, I'm a pharmacist who doesn't want you on medication, because what you don't realize is that the medication that you're on has side effects, and I don't care what anybody says, it has side effects, and then you're going to take medication for that side effect. So it's this. When I first started consulting in long-term care a long time ago, the average number of medications people came on was 9. The average number of medications that I see on admission now is 25 to 30.
No.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That is just going to kill somebody.
So think about all those medications that come with side effects.
Oh my
And most
goodness.
of it is because somebody has blood pressure issues. They're on 3 different blood pressure medications.
Mm-hmm.
Now comes the diabetes. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
on 3 to 4 different diabetic medications. Now you have high cholesterol. So you're also on high cholesterol medication. You might have sleep apnea. So there's all these other things that are that come into play when, if we can go to the source of the issue, the root cause analysis is our nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can cut it off at the nutrition part where you can maybe get off on some of those medications or not start them in the first place. That's where I get most of my clients, is that they went to the doctor and doctor says, oh, I'm going to put you on cholesterol medication. Or I'm going to like, whoa, hold up. Wait a minute. And then it's like, no, they do not want to be on medication. You don't have to. And that's what you have to realize, is that there's also a way to reverse that. So you can slowly come off the medication too, and treat yourself with food. We're meant to treat ourselves with food.
Mm. Our bodies are so miraculous in
Oh,
that
they're
way.
Cool. Yeah, it's
So
so cool.
amazing.
It's amazing and cool at the same time, and seeing all the things and the processes that we can that is available to us, that it's self-healing if we just give it the right tools.
I had a conversation with a guy. I heard him on Mike Rowe's podcast, and on the podcast, he was like, if somebody wants me in their podcast, I'll do it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to see if this works. And I had him on. His name is Vinny Tortorich. And he has three documentaries. One is Fat. It's Fat, the documentary, and then Fat 2. And then he took on the Impossible people. And so he's been canceled everywhere.
Oh no.
But he has a really, he was talking about, I just recently heard him again, and he was talking about this metabolic issue. And he was saying, if you're metabolically broken, he does a no sugars, no grains. That's kind of his thing. And he's like, if you do that for 30 days, it will help, it'll heal. And he said, and then, his thing is, I think you should live that way, but if you want to have those grains in moderation. But you mentioned the metabolic syndrome. So I'm wondering if you want to touch a little bit on sugars and grains and how those are maybe not our best friends. I think we kind of know, but let's talk a little, because there's healthy grains, right? Like quinoa and things like that. So
so I think he's, and some people take it to the extreme. So sugar, the problem is, like, when we went to the fat-free age, something had to replace fat. And what replaced fat was sugar. So we went from having a lot of cardiac issues and high blood pressure to all of a sudden having a major obesity epidemic and diabetes epidemic. And we have not gotten away from that since the late 80s and 90s. We continue to have it. So sugar is not our friend.
Well, corn syrup and corn syrup solids, when you read your labels, holy cow, it's in things it shouldn't be in.
So there's, I think, 30 different forms of sugar. So it's not just sugar. So you have to look
glucose and fructose
and all sorts of things. And they all impact what's called your blood sugar. They all impact. And that's where we talk about the insulin. And this is where we talk about insulin resistance and having prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The problem sometimes with grains, in somebody who is predispositioned to be diabetic, if they have, like me, have the diabetes gene, you just have to watch what you're eating, how much you're eating, and making sure that's not the only thing you're eating. Because your body, especially with sugar, with certain carbohydrates, your body will start to break it down in your mouth. It's with an enzyme it's called amylase. Like if you take a saltine cracker and you put it on your tongue, you're like, oh wait, in a little bit, it's going to start tasting sweet.
Sweet. Yes.
Yeah. It's that amylase that's breaking down all the sugars.
Okay.
So that goes into your system like that. So now we're looking at sugar
spikes. Okay.
But if we start looking at using some of those grains and making sure that we have fiber, making sure that we're eating with fat, we're eating it with protein, we're going to slow down that sugar spike. And that's what we want. Every time we spike, we're increasing our aging. And I don't mean little spikes. I mean big time spikes. And that's why I said that when you're a sugar burner, you're going up, down, up, down, up, down. You're just putting your body in this state of, I got to eat. And it's a Betty White moment. If you think about it, you're constantly hangry. And that's
So
what
you're
we don't want.
crashing,
Doing
you're
yes,
hungry, you're tired. Those are
you're
kind of key.
irritated, everything is getting on your nerves constantly. Yeah, it's and that's not good. And then maybe all of a sudden you're up and then you're down. And it's like, okay, I need my coffee or I need my energy drink. And then so you're kind of like giving yourself a constant band-aid and you're never fixing the problem. And a lot of people think, oh, because it's my job, it's my family, it's running it's running my kids around or the grandkids around or this. Well, no, if you start taking care of yourself and you start eating right, and I know that takes time and sometimes that's scary, you will be amazed at how well you feel. And when you feel good and you have energy, everything else just seems to snowball. Everything else just seems easier. And you don't have to worry about that constant crash, burn, crash, burn, crash, burn.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And I think, let's real briefly talk about like intermittent fasting. I've heard different conversations around that. I'm going to be having a return guest that has been on my podcast before about intermittent fasting. She's amazing. Her name's Mindy Pelz. And, there's different concepts around what does that look like, especially going through menopause, because again, menopause, perimenopause changes the way our body is relating, right? So do you find it for biohacking for some people that going a little longer, like eating at 7:00 at night and not eating again until 7 to 10 in the morning, can be a good way to reset the body and give the body a chance to rest and reset?
I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. And if you think about it, intermittent fasting is just this time period where we're not eating. You can do it for 12 hours, like stop at 7 p.m. and start at 7 a.m. That gives your body time to rest and digest. And what also happens is that you are decreasing your insulin resistance. You are increasing your insulin sensitivity. You're doing something that's called autophagy, and that's the cell turnover and healing part. The problem is in most of us in the American diet is that you get up at 5 a.m., you grab your coffee with your creamer, maybe a donut or a bagel, and then you go to work and you grab something else. And we're constantly grabbing throughout the day, and we don't stop until maybe we go to bed at 10 or 11. So all you did was give your body 6 hours of digestive rest. So what I usually do with my clients, especially with menopause, because a lot of intermittent fasting is a tool, it's not a diet.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that we're not under eating. So most of my menopausal clients, I'll start at 12 hours because I need to make sure that they're getting food, that make sure they're getting that fuel. It's not a tool for a diet because what people will do is like, oh, I'm just going to skip breakfast and start eating at 12. And they're using it as a calorie restriction. That doesn't help you when you need fuel. Eating the OMAD, the 1 meal a day, is horrible if you're premenopause or perimenopause or menopause.
Yeah.
That is not good for you. Hello, cortisol. There is just no way that you can eat the amount of food that you need to, or we need protein. And as we get older, it's harder for us to break down protein. You cannot get enough food in 1 meal per day. And everybody's like, oh, but I lost weight. Yeah, because you're depriving, and once again, you're losing muscle mass. That's not what we want to do. So intermittent fasting is great, done well, and used as a tool and not a diet.
I appreciate that. Wonderful. Now, I know, and I say this to a lot of guests, especially those who are a wealth of information, encyclopedic like you, but I would love to have you give us 3 kind of really important things that you want us to anchor into, start with, whatever angle you want to take on it. Give us 3 takeaways today.
So the first thing to think, baby steps. Don't think that you have to be like Biggest Loser. It's like, oh my God, I got to do 8 workouts a day and drink all this water. Give yourself grace. It's going to take some time. So baby steps. So first thing, start thinking about real food. What can you do today that you can replace something? I'm not telling you to be deprived. I'm telling you to just eat real food. So if maybe it's having chicken breast, maybe it's having some more fruit, having fruit at home, having vegetables at home, and you slowly start replacing. So if you start with breakfast with a donut, okay, how about, can we do 2 eggs? Yes, you can eat eggs. I'm sorry, they don't do cholesterol issues. Don't get me started on that one. You know,
I'm on board with you. I've got farm fresh eggs in my fridge. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we think that we're doing ourselves a favor by having a low fat bagel, and no, you're not at all.
Mm-mm.
And go ahead and have some eggs with some whole grain toast with some blueberries or raspberries, and that's going to help you so much. And you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I'm not crashing and burning. So, and then once you do that every day for breakfast. And when that gets better, go to the next one. Sleep. You need sleep. Our bodies crave it. We need it. It's our time we rest, we recover, we repair, rebuild. There's all the things that we do with sleep. Put those phones down. You don't need the blue light. I know it's hard. There's a thing on your phone called Do Not Disturb. Use it. Use it. And then the third is to move your body. Our bodies crave movement. We have seen that sitting is actually, they're calling it the new cigarette smoking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that our sedentary lifestyle causes a lot of issues. Walking, we know, after a meal will decrease your blood sugar significantly.
Okay.
So just by going for a walk. And if you get better, then we can talk about adding weights and everything else. But those three things: eat real food, get some sleep, and move your body, are a great way to start.
And so doable.
Yes. Yes. If you make it hard, you'll know you won't do it. If you make it that it works for you, you will be amazed at how successful you can be.
It's the sustainability of a decision, isn't it?
It really is. It's saying that, you know what, I'm not going to live this life anymore. I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to make it work.
And the motivation from someone like you, the job that you do and the people that you see is, I just had this conversation with my client yesterday, who I told you is 88. And we were discussing, her daughter was saying, talk to Gina about, helping you get motivated to do your exercises. And we talked about mindset. And basically it's like, you have the blessing of being mobile at 88.
Oh, yeah.
Do you still want to have that blessing? Your motivation then is, I'm so grateful I can move. I'm so grateful that I can still wash my own hair, take my own bath. You know what I mean? Like, if we shift the way we look at this, instead of deprivation, which you said, you don't have to deprive yourself. Like for me, I love ice cream, but I don't eat it all the time. But when I want it, I have it. I just have a small scoop of it. And in my mind, for my body, I do it earlier in the day, not late at night. Like just little things. So I think that this conversation, like I said, could continue to go on, but I think I would love to know, how can people get a hold of you or have access to you and your resources?
So they can find all my stuff at two different places. They can go to www.amykwilson.com. You can find all my links for socials, so Instagram, but you can't forget the K. So it's amykwilson.com. And then if you would like to schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me to talk about what's going on, you can go to callwithamy.live. That's callwithamy.live. And we can hop on a Zoom call or a call and talk. And if you decide to work with me, I'll throw in some resistance bands for you, because it's all about that muscle to age backwards.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. I'm so grateful for this conversation today. Thank you for so clearly communicating in a very lay person's terms what it is to be healthy, live healthy, make good choices. I really appreciate you taking the time to bring all of your knowledge, information, and your passion for healthy people to my tribe today. Thank you so much
for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Awesome. Friends, today, if you are on YouTube, Amy's links are right here. Just look down there, click right through. If you're on a podcast platform, head on over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 335, and all the links will be there for you, for Amy. This conversation, my friends, pretty much sums up the reason I want to have these conversations about midlife, because there's a lot of things that we believe that just aren't true. There's mindsets and belief systems and disempowering messages that we are surrounded with. And we have a choice in the way we choose to live, the way we choose to think about aging, the way we feel about aging, the way our bodies are responding. All of this is within us. We may need help. We may need information. You may need a resource like Amy here to help you get your feet on the right path. But just because you hit a certain point on the timeline of your life, it's not like it's over. It's not over until it's over. So if you're here and you're listening, it's not over. You can have that vibrant life you're looking for. I believe this so much. I want to bang a drum. We can live vibrant, amazing second halves. This is the gift that we get to choose to unwrap by the choices that we make. So friends, share this conversation. Have this conversation with your friends. Get a group of people together. Maybe have a Friday night meal night with your friends and play with healthy recipes. Get creative. Get excited about what real food tastes like, what it feels like to move your body, what it feels like to just be vibrant, and looking forward to each day. Thank you for joining Amy and I today. I look forward to sharing more inspirational people, messages, and information with you in the weeks to come. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.